got plywood countertops, double plywood top. Well, actually, that's just one, because it has to be two layers of plywood.
Okay.
Then we have backer board countertops.
Yeah.
Then we have mortar bed countertops.
And we're doing the third. We are doing a mortar bed countertop. And that's actually a little more intensive work.
It's more intensive, but it's probably the best method for countertops.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why you're making me do all of it.
Well, okay, so a mortar bed countertop, with all countertops, you still have to make sure that the cabinets are firmly attached to the walls.
Check.
If you have a center island, it has to be firmly attached to the floor.
And we don't have that, so we don't have to worry.
That's right. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that our rough decks are firmly attached to the cabinets with ample screws.
Check.
We want to make sure, watch out now.
Okay.
We want to make sure that wherever the counters meet with a return, that they're square.
And we are.
In advance, and we are. And then finally, we want to make sure that all of the surfaces are level across the preferred plane.
And we are.
We are. So that's cool.
Paul,
now, well, what do we do now? Oh, this.
This is going to be, that's right, this is going to be our first step. So what Paul and I are going to do is actually cut out for our sink. And as always, the sinks do come with a template.
Which will be helpful.
Yes, so we're going to lay this out, cut out for our sink, and then get to work.
That's right.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Now, after you've cut the sink opening, what you need to do is place the sink there to make sure that it fits. Use a saw to cut dot and dash cuts into the rough top. Dot and dash cuts allow moisture to pass through the plywood and prevent the plywood from warping as the moisture increases and decreases.
Vacuum the sawdust from the rough top, drawers, and cabinets below. Apply craft paper from the rough top to the floor to protect the cabinets during mortar and tile installation. The craft paper won't be removed until the installation is complete.
Now what you need to do is apply 15-pound roofing felt to the rough deck, turning the felt up the wall approximately 2 inches. Allow the roofing felt to drape over the apron. Now make sure that you fold the roofing felt into all corners tightly.
As you can see, the other two countertops have already been floated, so we can work off them to achieve our proper elevation. Level the first form from the existing countertop that has already been floated. Make sure that it is not only level with the existing countertop, but with the new area that we are going to float.
We've prepped the hard part, the rest is simple. Cut and install your cap strip level with this form to proceed around the rest of the cabinet. Use galvanized nails or galvanized screws to secure the cap strip to the rough top.
After the cap strip is installed, mark the felt by touch with chalk to determine where the sink opening is. Do not cut out the felt at the sink opening yet. The next step is to install your 2.5-pound expanded metal lath. To do this, simply put your wire in place, line it up with the mark you made on the sink, and cut the wire. Be very careful as you're cutting this wire because it can be really sharp.
Install the wire on the rough deck and simply fold the wire, allowing a 1/2-inch gap at the back wall. Install all the metal lath with a 2-inch overlap.
At the sink opening, it will be necessary to cut thin strips of metal lath for the front and rear of the rough deck. Staple all metal lath to the rough deck with galvanized 1/2-inch staples 2 inches on center. Okay, this is a premix wall mud that you just simply add water to. Now as Mike here adds more water, he's going to check the consistency, cut it in a little bit at a time to make it easy on himself, and he's going to bring it up to a consistency that's workable and trowelable. And you'll see how that works in a minute. Go ahead, Mike.
All right.
And you want to add a little bit of water at a time because you don't want to add too much water all at once, or you'll have too much water in the mix. Now watch how an expert does this. Makes it easy on himself. He's just going to cut it in a little bit at a time. And you can mix dry pack the same way. But when we get done with the whole mix, you'll see how when you take a shovel and run it through it, it maintains that valley and doesn't slump in. If it slumped in, that'd be too much water. Now I know this seems like a lot of prep work, but we are to the mortar stage. We've mixed our mortar, and we're going to apply it now to our wire. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put on our gloves, because if that mortar gets in any cuts or blisters or anything you've got, can really be painful, so wear your gloves. So we're simply going to apply some mortar right here on the top of the wire. And the first process really is simple. You're going to fully encapsulate the wire with this wall mud. Then we're going to work out around the cap strips. But let's encapsulate the wire first. All you're going to do is you're going to drive it in. You're going to drive it into the wire. Now, when I say encapsulate, what I mean is, if you can picture that wire sitting on the top of the deck, if you fully encapsulate it with cement and sand, it's less likely to corrode over time. So we just pack in our wall mud, and you can see that I'm exerting a little bit of pressure, but that just drives the wall mortar down onto the wire. Now you remember where we marked our sink opening. Why did we make such a big deal out of leaving this paper in place? It's because if we didn't, you can just picture all this wall mortar falling right in this hole right down at where your sink and all your plumbing's going to go. We want to do that. So we leave the paper in place, and that's the reason. Also, when we go to finish this opening here, and we start cutting this mortar off flush with these float strips, and later our cap strip and float strip arrangement, we're going to want to cut this off so it's a perfect place to set our tile on top of, and then later our sink. So every step is important. I know there's a lot of them, but let me tell you, this is the best way to do countertops right here. Mortar bed countertops. All of our wire is encapsulated. Now we're ready to fill our cap strip. And you might ask, why am I starting here at the sink? Well, we're not only filling cap strip, but we're going to put in our pencil rod. See, cabinets at a sink back here and a sink face here are weak because the wood's very thin. This metal rod embedded in the mortar will stiffen these areas up. And I can tell you that we're going to put two more right on top of that dishwasher where it's just that open plywood on top there with nothing underneath. Watch how I do it. I'm just simply holding the finish trowel up against the front because as I push the mortar from the back, it comes out these little mortar holes in the front, which is very important. When we fill the front of the cap strip, it'll lock together with those little holes of mortar from the back and become a monolithic installation all the way around. So we just work our way across. Go over here and get our pencil rod. Let's make sure it's the right size. Yep, looks good. Ooh, yeah. Look at that. Beautiful. Now we can finish it. Covering up that pencil rod. By the way, we're going to do the same thing back there, except we don't have the cap strip to fill. Let me just show you how simple it is to fill that cap strip. Watch this. Put your finish trowel under here. Plop some mortar down in there. Force it into the face of the cap strip. When you have the length of the finish trowel done, just simply rotate it down, and you're going to use your margin trowel just to cut that off. Now, as you go, you might end up with some little holes in here. You just fill those. All right. Well, that's how straight my float strips are. And I've pre-soaked them with water because if you put them in your mortar bed when they're too dry, they'll curl up. We don't want that. So why the float strips? Well, the float strips are going to go in columns of mortar along our countertop here, and they're used so that we can use a metal straight edge like this one to cut off that mortar between the cap strip and the float strip, giving us a level bed. Now we'll put these at distances so we can reach all of our countertops with our straight edge. So all we're going to do is we're going to take our float strip, we're going to put it in our little column of mortar that we built up, and we're going to level that across the front, level with the front cap strip. You see? We're looking at the bubble, making sure that we're all the way down onto the cap strip in front and level across the back. Reason why this is so important is if you picture the cap strip being level all the way across the apron, if these are level going this way, then the back will be level too. And that'll allow us to cut this whole deck off of mortar completely level. Okay, so we're just gonna fill in the sinkhole here, and we're gonna use wall mud because it's nice and pliable, and it's easy to rod off between these float strips and the cap strip. And it makes a really nice sink opening when we go to cut it off flush so that the sink will fit nice and the tile will go on it. Now, it's all filled in. It looks pretty good. Now what you got to do is carefully figure a place where you're going to start your rodding off process. Now what I wanted to point out here was how when you use this straight edge to rod this mortar off, how nice and flat this is against your float strip. And it makes the perfect sink opening. If you work slowly, deliberately, and carefully, this will be nice and flat, and you'll have that perfect space for your sink opening. Now, as you work here, let me show you what it looks like. You see how the mortar kind of rolls back like that? You're going to go all the way to the back wall, then you're going to take your finish trowel, and you're going to pick up that mortar and put it back in your bucket. Dry pack mortar is still a bag mix in our case, and is chopped in. However, much less water is used than wall mud. If you notice that dry pack, when it's mixed properly, you can clump it in your hand. It will maintain the shape, but it'll leave your hand dry when you release it. You want to make sure that your dry pack is in very solidly. Remember, there's not much water in here. The whole point is you got to pack it in real solid. There is no reason to speed this along in any way. This is the part where you just take your time and just do a little bit at a time until it's all filled in good. Your wood float can really be a help here to keep it all nice and flat. Okay, well now we're going to pull the float strips because we wouldn't want to leave this wood in our beautiful mortar bed. So we're simply going to score them along the side. The float strip ends right here at the cap strip. So if you just take your margin trowel and you just pop it in there, that little float strip come right out. Now after your float strip's out, you simply take some wall mortar, because I think it's a little easier to use really. And what you're going to do is you're going to fill that void in with wall mortar. Pack it nice and tight. So once you got that in there, you got that nice straight edge of that finish trowel. Real careful like. You're just going to ease that right off that bed. And that's all there is to it. Well, all this prep work pays off. Check this out. Solid mortar bed to set the... Who
Hey,
are
Polly.
you?
I am Jody Marks.
Oh, yes, that's right. But you've been conspicuously absent during this process.
I went shopping. Look what I brought you.
Oh, look at that.
This is our tile that we're going to be putting down. This is our field tile.
Oh, yeah.
The thing that I like best about this is it also comes with the cap bull nose here.
Uh-huh.
And then we also have corner caps.
Oh,
as well.
yes. We can avoid those miter cuts
Yes.
at the outside corner.
So this is beautiful. So this is actually, when you place it, it's going to go right there.
Yeah,
It's
that's
gonna look
pretty.
really
Isn't that
good.
backed up by that field?
Yep.
That'll be great. As you can see, we have our primary working lines on our counter. And these working lines will be for our V-cap. And then our first full tile will go right in that apex, which is generally where you start on L-shaped counters like this, where you have a main counter, especially with a sink, and then, of course, a return. So this is where they're going to go, and are we ready to set some tile?
Yes, we are. I've got
Cool.
the thin set mixed up here. I'm going to move it in here, and I
Right.
think what
I'll load
do,
up your trowel for you.
Thank you. I'm going to start working in this area, and as a matter of fact...
Ooh,
as-
this stuff was obviously mixed to manufacturer's recommendation, and it is nice and creamy and ready to go. Here you go.
All right, let me get my hair out of the way here.
Oh, very well.
Yeah, whenever I cook or work.
Yes.
All right, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to key it, and then I'm going to comb it. So what I want to do, though, is get it close to the line, but without covering it.
Right. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh,
All right,
yeah.
Buttercup, we are ready to start
ready?
setting some tile.
All right.
I want to make sure that I can see my pencil line there, which I can.
Yes.
And I can see my pencil line through there. I'm just gonna work it in, twisting.
There you go.
And now these are self-lug tiles, so we're just gonna put them right next to each other.
This one's got to come over about like that.
Well, I don't know, Paul. I got my line. Oh, I see.
Yeah, see the line?
Yep.
All right, right there. Good.
There.
Ouch.
All right, you all right?
Here you go.
Oh, you got it.
There you go.